All right, so you do okay, ready?
You do the thing?
Yeah.
And then I'll do the thing, say the name,
And then I'll introduce, yeah. Hey, it's Jim Ward.
And I'm Jay Parkin, and this is Better Heroes Podcast.
Today we have Jeremy Bolm from Touché Amoré.
You nailed it.
I nailed it. I was
Amoré.
stressing. I fucking stress on that for some reason. For sure. Thank you.
Were you stressed out? Really?
I do really. I even did it, yesterday when we were filming Beto, who I've known for 30 years. I was like, you get to the last name. I never say his last name. You know what I mean? So then I was like, oh, yeah.
It's with the, and this is not me trying to pitch, just advertise something immediately into this, but like with the podcast that I do, there's often times where I have that thing where I go to do the intro for the podcast, and I'm like, I've never heard this last name said out loud. So then I'll go
That's what I just said.
I'll go on YouTube and I'll try to find other interviews of the person. And how many people are cowards and just say, I'm talking to so-and-so from so-and-so, and they don't say the last name. Yeah. And I'm just like, everybody's afraid. Yeah. So the amount of times I've then had to hit up the singer or whomever and be like, could you just send me a voice note of how to properly say your last name?
So
like
awesome.
Matt from the Bronx. Cawthron?
Catherine.
I've never heard anyone say the name I've never heard anyone say Cawthron in an interview before.
Yeah,
Everyone just goes, I'm talking to Matt from the Bronx.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
That's your last name, right?
I'm going to be the guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it the way it is.
Yeah.
Isn't Matt great?
He's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've known Matt for very
I'm a fan. Also
very,
does a
very-
podcast.
Also does a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sailor Jerry.
We did content swapping.
Right,
Content
we're gonna
swapping?
Now
Yeah.
we're going to
We might content swap.
Yeah.
Jim, you got to be on.
I'm in. Yeah.
Anyway.
And well, now that you're going to pitch your podcast, we have to know the name.
It's called the First Ever Podcast.
See, I know what I'm doing.
It is a great concept. Like when I saw, I've been watching for a while. I really have. I mean, you have a bunch of people that I'm friends with on there. Will Yip is a dear. Will Yip is a brother of mine. And so whenever something pops up that's somebody or somebody I don't know,
Sure.
it's fantastic. I love
Yeah.
it. I love the idea.
Yeah. It's just about first experiences.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the concept, but I haven't been on it yet.
You should be.
I have like friends that are like good long time musician friends that are like, you just don't want to have me on. Like, is there
That's
something
cool.
that I don't know?
What did I do?
And I often, I've jokingly tried to use it as a motivational tool. Well, I'm like, well, you haven't put out a record in 3 years.
Oh, nice.
Like, I want something to promote. I want it to be mutually beneficial so that you have something to promote too, kind of a thing.
I think and we were talking about this before we started, but one of the craziest things is we walked up to your apartment today and you came out the door and I immediately gave you a hug because I feel like I know you. We've never met before.
Yeah.
Never played shows together. You've played my club in El Paso before when I used to have a club, but I've never actually physically met you.
Yeah.
But the amount of friends we have is so insane. I mean, mostly like just Jeff, right? So the common Jeff connection, but it's crazy that we've never even hung out. And so it does feel like we know each other. And then, I think when you're good friends with the same good friends, it's pretty natural or whatever. But I'm so grateful to finally be in the room and to share some stories.
Yeah. No, definitely. It is funny how that works out where in a similar situation, there's a band called Tiger's Jaw that we
Ben.
forever ago had never met. This was like 2013. We hadn't met them yet. Or was it Balance? It might have been Balance and Composure. Either way, either of these bands we were about to go on tour with, but we hadn't met them yet. And we were doing the thank you list for our record at that time. And we literally were like, let's just throw them in. We know we're going to be friends with them in about 2 weeks. And so we just added them in our thank you list before ever meeting them.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And we were like, because we just know it's going to be fine. We have enough mutuals. There's no way that these mutuals would also be friends with them if whatever else.
Does it ever make you wonder about the circles that we're not in and what those circles are like? Like those mutuals, right? Where like if we met them, we wouldn't get along with them because there's this other circle.
That's a good question.
Blowing my mind right now.
You just blew your own
and I wouldn't
mind.
put any like names or bands on there that I'm not. There's not like a band that I'm like I would never hang out with that band. But I just wonder if there's people that are like cut a different way or whatever. Because there's people you tour with where you're like, oh, we didn't click, but they're cool.
Right. It's funny being in this town where I'm born and raised. It's a little easier for me to be like, oh, I can imagine that because there's certainly enough people that I've met in this town that I'm like, not my type, not my person. But Yeah. The friendships that, as we all know, that form on tour are like lifelong in a way. And it's like, I think that's the most special part of it, where it's like, I could go 6 years without seeing this person, but as soon as we end up in the same room at a festival or whatever it might be, it's just like pick up right where you left off, and then you're just telling stories about all the other mutuals, and
it's the best. It really is the best life.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's pretty incredible. So the concept of this podcast is talking to our heroes about their heroes, excuse me. So getting to know who those people are that inspire you.
Yeah.
So off the top of your head, do you have a hero?
Like that guy a lot. Leonard Cohen is an all-timer. Obviously I never had the opportunity to meet that man. Right. But there's so many aspects of Leonard Cohen's career that is very inspirational to me. I love that he didn't put out a solo record until he was in his 30s. I think that that's an awesome aspect, because we live in a world to where you sort of, I feel, my heart goes out to younger people that are starting out, because they think if like they don't have something off the ground by the time they're like 20, that it's just never going to happen for them, or like, so it's inspiring to be like, this guy didn't even put out a record till he was in his 30s. He was an author. He had put out some books and stuff like that, but then he just tried this out, and he's never been known as a great singer either. And I think that that's inspiring as well.
Yeah, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
To us, I guess, to know him as him instead of hearing him for the first time as an unknown or whatever. And people would say, well, like, maybe not the best singer. You're like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
I would trade in a minute.
Right. And there's always the thing that gets brought up. It's like, about traditional singers or whatever. It's like, if Bob Dylan, not knowing who Bob Dylan was, went on American Idol, he'd be laughed off the stage.
Absolutely.
But you're like, he's one of the most
He's
important.
Bob Dylan.
He's fucking Bob Dylan, So because of that, and also, I'm a massive fan of his writing, his poetry, all that sort of stuff, which has always been a huge inspiration for me. So when it comes time for me to have to like write a record or write just sort of in general, and I find myself a little bit aimless, it's really easy to just pop open one of his books or throw on one of his records, and it always unlocks something. It's not like in a way of like trying to emulate, but it's more so just exciting and motivational in a way too.
The spark.
Yeah.
Gotta have the spark.
Totally.
The flint.
Poetry or music, what comes first? I mean, it's all poetry.
Yeah.
But really,
I would say music, but it's funny, in my brain, I like separate music and writing for myself. I don't wonder if you do as well.
I'll get to it when you finish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Where like writing just for me is such a different part of my brain. So, and I used to never write unless I had to. Like, I wish I was the kind of writer that was just had a notebook all the time and was just scribbling things in there, whatever. But I've never been that guy. But over these last handful of years, 10 years, I try to use poetry as like a way to sort of just like keep that side of my brain working a little bit. And I like writing like that because it's very non-committal. Like, I don't have to perform this ever. I could write it, let it go.
Yeah, I'm stealing this shit right now. Stealing this right now.
Yeah, it's like there's something very freeing about that, to be like, I could write this. It could be terrible, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you don't have to stress about it.
Exactly.
Fuck, I've never thought about it that way. So I was thinking about it as soon as he asked that question. I was like, okay, there's people like Jeff that are writers.
Yes.
And then I know that you write, besides song lyrics, you also write.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me the other day, was asking like if I'd ever do a book of my stuff. And I was like, of what stuff? And they're like, oh, lyrics. And I'm like, oh, that's writing? Like, I never even thought about, I literally have never even thought about it other than I have to do this to keep writing songs. Cause I think 98% as a guitar player, you know what I mean? And 2% is like, oh, you're also the front man. So you got to write this shit. And but then once I get to it, I take it seriously and it's intense, and then it gets really overwhelming and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm just going to write poetry so I can keep exercising that part of my brain.
It's
never thought about it.
It's so freeing. And you know, I'll do collections, like zine sort of style collections, and I'll release those, and it's a nice way to sort of also have some extra income when I need it. And if people take something from it, that's great. But like I said, it's really nice to sort of just get something out of my head. I can critique it and try to make it better and things like that. But like, it's so nice to be like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I don't have to perform this in any capacity. You could just let it go. That's how I was feeling in that moment and that day. Cool. You know,
when it comes to lyrics, song lyrics, is there a point, and I'm asking for a friend, is there a point where you can, is there a point where you can let it go and quit? Like, how obsessive do you get about this word forever, this word forever, this word forever? Because my friend is currently in a situation where this word forever is driving him nuts.
I am very hard on myself.
Okay.
Like,
that makes me feel a little bit better. My friend thinks that's cool.
I'm like, we just, you know, we're promoting our 6th record, and I won't repeat words. Like, if I've said a certain word on our 2nd record, I'm like, can't, you know? And that's, once you get to your 6th record, that's fucking hard to
it's getting hard.
Yeah. Or like, I'll write a phrase and I'm like, oh, I said something kind of similar to that on album 4. It's like, I can't do that again. And that's also tough because you also want to make sure you're not constantly just sort of writing about the same things, but there's so many things that are just so universal that it's hard to sort of avoid those topics and whatnot. But yeah, I'm very obsessive. This record was the longest it took me to write. It took me over a year to finish.
Really?
12 songs, you know? And 4 of them I had to write a month and a half before we went into the studio. So I was losing my mind.
What's the process for you guys? Is it music's done?
Always. Okay. Music first.
Yeah.
And also, I won't even start trying to write lyrics until we have at least 3 or 4 songs done musically, because I don't know what it is yet. You know,
Sure.
like, I'm curious if you relate to that, to where it's like, it's like, okay, guys, we're gonna start writing a new record, and then here's the first song. It's just like, I don't know if the rest of this is gonna sound like that. This might just be the first. We're shaking off the cobwebs, and then we might ditch this song later.
Yeah.
If I know early on that this song isn't gonna last, I don't even write lyrics to it.
Yeah.
Just like, that's why I can't relate to people who write lyrics first before music, because I'm like, you're gonna have to cut stuff out. Like, you have to make it fit. You have to make it fit in there. And the idea of like removing something is so stressful to me. Do you write?
So this is interesting talking about this, because last year we finished up a tour at the end of November, and then I had an injury that wouldn't allow me to play guitar for like a couple of months. And I thought, oh, cool, I'll just take this opportunity to do something totally different. I'm going to write a whole record lyric first, like a whole arcing story, and just really put in the energy to like whatever. And I beat that fucking horse dead until I gave up like a month ago and was like, just burned it. I was like, fuck this isn't working. I cannot do it.
Wow.
Let go of all the lyrics, all the riffs, everything just into the ether, and was like, I'm fucking over it. Like erased the hard drive, like erased the music, done. Like, fuck it, I'm over it. Because I tried to force myself into something as an exercise, and the exercise was, you know, good that you tried, but you failed. Admit you failed and move on. And then immediately wrote probably a third of this record that we'll record like in a couple of weeks. Like, it's just letting go of it was a huge thing for me. I always write lyrics last.
Yeah.
And I have maybe like melody ideas or whatever, but essentially I'm always going to be the guitar player bringing riffs into the room. Like, that's always been my job. And then when the song's done, then I can change hats and put on the singer hat, which I still don't.
Oh.
I mean, the other day I was telling Jim Atkins, like, I was like, man, I still don't really consider myself a singer. And he's like, really, 20 years? Like, come on. Like, enough with this.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me. Like, I still don't see myself that way. It's weird when people acknowledge me that way.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm probably not welcome, but I feel a little bit like a fraud, I think, sometimes, like when I hang out with proper writers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just on me. That's just my hang up. But
Oh, that's interesting.
I do really love listening to the way other people write, though, because I am like always taking notes and trying to be like, how do you do this better? How do you do it in a more interesting way? Or how do you do it in a more authentic way? Or how do you learn? Because this isn't like it's not like I went to high school with dudes that were in bands. Like I didn't go to college with people that were writing songs. Like this is all, you have to get it when you get it, right? So
yeah, I've had friends that try to sell me on the artist way. Have you gone that route? Have you tried that shit?
Mm-mm.
That book? It's like,
yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Have you tried that?
Yes.
How'd it go for you?
It didn't. It didn't at all.
what is it? I don't know what it is.
I haven't read it, so I can't speak on it. You have read it?
Well, my wife, Heather, was making me try this. And I can't. It's interesting because I kind of have a question that I was going to follow up with this to you. This is wild. Gordon, he's back here. This is wild sitting with you guys right now because I don't do what you guys do, right? I'm always music only. I don't do the lyrical side of things. So a minute ago, you were talking about your poetry and you were talking about almost writing it to write it, and then you just let it go. I never have to perform this stuff. My argument to you, just critiquing it, is I think you perform it in its display, in its how you create the book or the poetry book. Mm-hmm. You did a split poetry book that was a flip book recently.
Yeah.
With
Pat from Drug Church and Self-Defense Family.
Yeah. And I'm like, that. And to me, that was the hook.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to listen to these. I'm going to read these. I'm going to read these. The mind that you guys put into this, the effort that you guys put into it. To me, it was a performance, which is really interesting. Yeah. So when I listen to Touché Amoré songs, there's a collection. It is never, in my opinion, been a collection of songs. And I don't like collections of songs. I don't like when people just write a song and then write another song and then write another song and then write another song. It's like Wiretap. Like when I heard that record for the first time, everyone knew the outside 40,000 foot story between there's a breakup in this band and then this band starts and this band starts and I'm with this band and I like this band and why can't, in a weird way, we like them both. I understand that you're going through trauma throughout this whole thing, but I feel when I listen to Touché and I read the lyrics, I'm always a lyrical reader. I read the lyrics and I go, wow, that's heavy. Mm-hmm. I think you've always been in incredibly deep, like thoughtful. And I know that there's a lot of records, I would say maybe Stage 4, that was like, when I got done listening to that record, it was almost cathartic for me, to listen to that pain.
Yeah.
And so the artist way for me, I don't do that.
Like, I appreciate all of that.
Yeah.
I know one of the aspects, like for example, like Barry, who sings in Joyce Manor. We talked about it once because he was like, I've been doing this because I need to write a record. It helps me, which is like the second you wake up, grab a notebook
and you write
and just stream of conscious write. And he's like, you'll be shocked at how wildly negative everything that's coming out of your head is, because it's just like he's like, and it's 98% terrible.
Yeah.
He's like, you might get one line that then takes you down and goes, okay, now I can write a song based off this one line. Yeah. And that sort of inspires you. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, I know Billy Corgan's really into that shit too.
Do you do any sort of, do you have any sort of structure? Do you have any sort of structure?
All I do, and I have a note. I used to carry a book in my pocket. Now I use my notes or whatever. If I see something or hear something or something sparks like like an inspiration point, I just make a note of it. And then that will often, I always say that I write fiction always based in nonfiction. So every song I could tell you there's a line or there's something, almost every song, there's something in it that's a true thing that happened to me. Like I didn't create this, but then I take that and then I build on top of it. Right. So I could show you the notes later. It's just all one line things. And it could be like, whatever. I drive by a billboard and there's like the way the words shape off. Like if it's 3 sentences and the way the middle words all shoot down is interesting. Like In on the Kill Ticker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's different lines, but the words line up to make something going down instead.
That's interesting. And that reminds me a lot of like when you ever hear like Kurt Cobain talk about lyrics, or Chino from Deftones talk about lyrics, where they're like, I feel like it's a little bit deflecting a little bit, but they were always like, I don't write about anything. It's just whatever. But there's always the one line in any of their songs to where you're like, I know that means something.
Yeah.
And that's usually the best line in the song.
Yeah.
Where you're like, that's the one.
I think it's really hard to not put the pressure on yourself to make every line that important. And that's the thing that I'm really honestly pretty good about, forgiving myself on being like, that's why it gets weird, right? That's why some shit is like nonsensical, because it doesn't all have to be spelled out for you, right? For me, I need that spark point, and then, you know, I've had a million conversations, you have too, I'm sure, with fans that are like, this song means this to me. And I'm like, killer. They're like, what does it mean? And I'm like, I'm never going to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my place. It's yours. Like the minute that record is mastered, my job's done. You know, we can play it and we can perform it. We can do all that shit, but it's yours.
That's a great, that leads me to a question. How open are you when fans come and say, what is this song about? Or I think this song means this. Really? Do you shut off and go, and like you just said, nod and agree?
I've never actually had this conversation with another songwriter, which is super weird.
Blessing and a curse that I think most of what I write is like so fucking direct that it's like, it's kind of hard to not.
It's hard
just
to not
be like, to be like, that's what the fuck this guy's writing, you know, whatever kind of a thing. But there have been times where someone will approach me and say, this is what the song meant to me. And though they might be saying something that is on the other side of the world to what I was writing about, I would never correct them. I'm just like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Like, one, I love hearing you not correct, because I know, again, like I know our circle of friends are cut from a certain cloth.
Yeah.
And I'd be shocked if you're like, fuck that. That's not what it means. Right.
Right.
You'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Give me the record back. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Like, not to get too heavy, but like the first song on Stage 4, the chorus is like I mentioned the struggle I had with when my mom was very ill, like her not eating, right? And like the arguments that we would have because it would frustrate me. And that's like a very direct song. I would think about that aspect. And I had someone once approach me and be like, that song really helped me with like my eating disorder. And I was like, I would never be like, listen.
Yeah. First off, I own this.
Yeah. So I was very moved by it. And I was like, that's amazing.
I think a lot of times people take what they need from it. And that's the coolest thing, that they don't know they need it. Maybe they do know they need it, but they're searching for something. And that's why you fall in love with something. You're falling in love because you've opened up this vulnerability to need. And then once you do that and you can fulfill that with something, and something fills that puzzle piece, right? That's the best thing. I'm doing like a solo tour right now, singer-songwriter thing with just me and an acoustic. And it's the reason I did it, one, is because I'm trying to do something with Jeff next year, and he's so good at it that I don't want to suck. So this is my goal, is to like go get some practice. But I've never really talked about songs on stage. One, I found out that I cry really quickly, which is, I didn't realize that I did. So the first 3 shows, I was just like, holy shit, like get choked up. And like, I'm an ugly crier. So I'm trying really hard to not be like,
yeah.
But also being able to tell these stories and then have people come up afterwards. Like, so there's, the Collapse on the first Sparta record. There's a line in there that's where on and at the drive-in tour, we're sitting at a hotel in Gold Coast, the first day of Big Day Out. And I was sitting on a balcony and I was trying to convince myself not to jump off because I was so miserable. But I was in this thing that was exploding and selling so many records, and all, everyone's talking about our band. And I was like, I've never been this miserable in my life. And I don't know how to communicate that with anybody because I'm 23 and they put a bottle of vodka in my room. And so what am I supposed to do? Like, I drank the vodka and I sat, but I've never really told that story.
Yeah.
And afterwards now talking to fans that are like just crying, and they're like, I didn't know someone like you could feel like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is why we're in bands.
Yeah.
Like, this is why we write songs, because we're like trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, we're all the same. We all feel this shit, And so I think now at 47 years old, I'm having this epiphany of like, oh, I do want to talk about this. I do want to share this stuff. I do want to maybe be somewhat of a bridge to maybe healing. Last night we went to go see Jelly Roll. Do you know who that is? Like the country guy?
Yeah.
And it was insanely emotional and insanely cathartic. And it was like ridiculous. Like him
First
talking.
of all, the production is like going to see WWE.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Like it is bonkers.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it.
It's so worth it. But his literal connection with the audience, the storytelling, the engagement, the gratitude that he has. It's
the vulnerability.
Not the vulnerability. There's nothing fake about it. When he's trying to tell a story and he sees somebody hold up a phone that said it's my birthday, and he's like, "It's your birthday? What? How? What? Your 6th birthday? You look older than 6. You look more like 66. 66, 6." And he stops, and then he's back into the story with the rest of the people. He has such an uncanny way to read the room.
Yeah.
And
it was honestly, it was like the fan appreciation is amazing, but also him just talking about addiction and recovery. And, you know, he's like, if you're here to get fucked up, if you're here to celebrate sobriety, we're with you. Know what I mean? And it's somewhat of a show, but it was really, it was pretty good. Man.
Yeah.
It was pretty, and the production's ridiculous. Like, it's like,
their production's
it's like 80s hair metal meets WWF.
WWE, like
it's on fire. It's raining. Like,
there was rain. He had a rain
giant
stage.
Skulls are coming down.
Skulls, rosary beads. What else? A crown came down at one point. Like,
we digress. But the point is,
you should do that with your production.
The point is to see an artist of that level being vulnerable about that stuff. And you know, he has a song, "I'm Not Okay," which is like just saying like it's okay to not be okay and to talk about it, whatever. I think it's just kind of refreshing. You know what I mean? Instead of, we have this amazing life, you're never going to have it, you should idolize us.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to hope that curtain is being pulled back more and more.
I mean, it definitely has. Yeah, definitely has. Yeah, for sure. We digress, though.
Yeah, we digress. Back to you and your career and your writing and your songs and your poetry and your stuff. What was there a moment? I know this is kind of a cliche question that everybody asks, right? But was there a moment when you were growing up where you're like, this is exactly what I'm going to do? Or is there some sort of, you know, was there is it a I have to do this, I can only do this?
It's funny. I always played guitar in bands. This is the first band that I ever sang in, and I just like, I remember so I was in this band before Touche where I played guitar, and I left that band and I started Touche like 6 months later, and I was like 24 at the time, and I had previously worked at a record store. I chose working at a record store instead of going to college. Can't say that I was thrilling my family with my choices, because they were like, would have been nice to have one member of our family finally go to college. And I was like, nope, it's not going to be, couldn't be me. And then I just like I would work jobs where I was getting paid $1 above minimum wage all my life. But when I wasn't at work, I was trying to play shitty shows. And so when I left that band, I could tell there was like a sigh of relief from my family to be like, okay, now he's going to grow up.
Yeah. Here comes college.
At that point, I left the record store. I started working in post-production. I'm from Burbank, which is like Media City town. Every member of my family has worked in post-production in some capacity. So I was like, I'm now joining what it is to be a Burbank resident.
Yeah.
And so then I started Touche within 6 months with a new group of friends. And within a year, we did our first West Coast tour. And I remember my mom, my brother, all of them being like, really? You're doing this again? Kind of a thing. And I was like, what's second nature to me? I'm like, yeah, I am. But then in 2010, we were on a U.S. tour. And then the LA show, we played at the Troubadour.
Yeah.
And it was us, that band from Japan, Envy. They were headlining. So all of us in the band had our families out for that show. That's the first time anyone in our band brought out their families for it, because it was like, we're playing the Troubadour. It's a respectable venue, all that sort of stuff. It's not like trying to tell them to come down to like the fucking Vets Hall in Santa Clarita or something, So we had all the folks out. At that point, we had enough buzz, especially like in LA. You
Sure.
know, like LA was home and whatever else. So they were all on the balcony. It was like, it was so funny for the show to look up and just see like families at this show.
Family section.
And yeah, and we played. The place went crazy. And afterwards, my brother, my mom, and my dad all were like, "This is what you should be doing."
Oh wow!
And
that's such a heavy moment, man.
that was such a weight off of me.
Yeah.
And since that day till today, I've had like the most supportive family who are like excited anytime I'm like, yep, going here on tour. Like, oh, you know, we have a new whatever it is. Like they've been behind me since.
Yeah. They just had to see it.
They just had exactly. Cause they didn't have any frame of reference. It was just,
sure.
Now I'm,
and it sounds crazy.
yeah. And also I'm yelling. It's like not music that's like,
right.
Whatever. So, that for me was like kind of personally the moment where I was like, okay, if they see it, if they see something in this,
yeah,
I'm doing something. At least I hope, you know.
Oh, it's such a good story.
Felt good. It definitely felt good. Yeah. And in a sweet, you know, sort of sentiment, whenever we finish recording a new record, the first person I play for is my brother.
Yeah.
Like I get him in the car and I play for him. Because I know whatever his response is not going to be the same as anyone else's, especially because he doesn't come from punk and hardcore.
Yeah.
So he's hearing it with different ears than anyone else. I know there's the bias of him being my brother, but I'll watch the ways in which he lights up about parts.
But there's also the bias on both sides. So it's like, could be more critical, could be less forgiving about certain things, right? Because it's your brother. So
yeah,
both sides.
Yeah. Thankfully, he's not like Lars's dad and some kind of monster, you know, telling me I should delete it or something. But
James.
yeah.
James. That movie.
So yeah, it's always a thing I look forward to once we have like the record at least mixed or something, you know? Yeah.
I think it's also really hard for people that don't know our community to understand that you can, and I tell this to people all the time that ask if I'm famous. Like, I'm not at all famous, but there's a whole millions of us that make a living doing music you'll never hear, right?
Yeah.
There's, I mean, not millions, but a lot of us, right? And I remember getting on a Southwest flight, and the girl in front of me was a fan, and she asked if she could take a picture. So I took a picture with her. Then I got on the plane, and whatever woman sat next to me was like, "Oh, I saw that girl took a picture with you." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, are you famous?" And I said, "Do you know who I am?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Then I'm not famous." Like, that's the end of the story. Is that to her, I mean something. To you, I'm nobody, and that's cool. Like, you know, just a dude, whatever. And I love this part of our community, right? I love it so much. I love it's not easy to explain to somebody like, "Oh, I'm going to be in a band," and they can instantly understand, like, if you're not on a Learjet, then you didn't make it. Having people go crazy at the Troubadour is all you need. Like, that's all you need.
When around that same time, my 10-year high school reunion happened, and I had remained friends with was like, "You gonna go?" And I was like, "I think I'm gonna be on tour." Unfortunately, I was like, I don't know that I would go, kind of a thing, and I was down on myself because I was like, I feel like I don't have much to report. You know what I'm saying? And then he would always reiterate to me, he's just like, "You're the one guy that like didn't throw in the towel. Like, you always were driven to do this, and it's like cool to see that it's been working for you in some capacity." But I would always just be self-deprecating, and it's just like,
sure,
yeah, I'd still live at home because
also
I can't
part of our community.
I can't afford rent, and I'm only home for like 3 months out of the year anyway. So why would I pay rent? And like, so, but yeah, I was like, but I could fucking excite a 17-year-old to front flip off a stage. So I got that going for me.
Yeah. Different measures of success.
Exactly. I would always be first to be self-deprecating about it, but it was nice to always have friends to try to remind me, like, no, like it's exciting to see it working for somebody, you know.
And that only continues as you get older, right? All of a sudden, people are like, "I hate my job, I hate my life, I hate my fucking IRA, I hate all of it." Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was funny when we got to play play Coachella one year, and it was 2016 or 15, I think. I can't remember, 2016 or 17. And that was when I posted that on Facebook. That was the time when all of a sudden all my classmates were like, hey, people I haven't spoken to since I graduated high school were like, hey, and I'm like, oh,
can I get
now?
Can I get on the guest list?
Yeah, exactly.
They come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I've been a fan forever.
Yeah, it's so cool. That was the measure of success in the eyes of the normals.
For sure, and because they now see something that they can identify with, and
totally,
which you can appreciate, but also you can laugh. We can laugh at because fuck you, man.
Right.
I've been doing this forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's really funny.
So, bands, we know a lot of the same people. In this scene. This genre. What is a genre anymore? Anyways, but in this scene, we have a lot of heroes. Are there any bands that you look up to? Always.
Yeah, for sure. A band that I will always love. My favorite hardcore band of all time is Converge, and they were always the marker of what's cool and not cool to us, especially when we were starting out, where we would be like, we're like, should we get a backdrop? Backdrops are kind of lame. Does Converge have a backdrop? They do.
Jake.
Okay, so we can do that. Dude. And it was like, should we do a kick drum design? Kind of lame. Does Converge have a kick drum design? They do.
Yeah.
All right.
Not lame.
Yeah, I guess it's okay. So they were always the measure of what's whack and what's not, and I'll always love that band. I love that, there's something inspirational, I think, to us as well, to where they're an in-house factory where it's like guitar player records bands, singer is a graphic design artist. We certainly have that luck with my band as well. It's like they all have their things that make them very unique. And though we didn't go this same route, but they've also never had a manager, which is crazy to think about.
That is crazy. They never have.
Not a single manager the entire time.
And then you get a little bit jealous.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, what's
that like?
Yeah, exactly.
And then people fire their managers and they're like, we just got a 20% raise. This is rad.
Yeah. Right, of course. They were just able to do it. I think they came up at a time too where in the kind of genre that they played, it just didn't seem really necessary.
And I think probably there was nobody that would manage. You're inventing something. Who's going to manage that? Totally. I can totally see that whole generation being who's going to manage something that we're creating in the moment.
I also really liked when they were kind of when they were a constant touring machine, that they never toured on a bus, that they were always a van band, and that they would always, every tour they did was a purposeful underplay, because they're we'd rather have a sold out show than not. So they were at a point where it's they could definitely play 1,000 cap rooms across the country, but they were no, we're going to play the 400 cap room. Yeah. And the show's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get back end onto the next show.
Yeah.
I
love that model. Yeah. I love that model.
Kurt, Jake, Nate. Oh my God. Yeah. Ben. I mean, they're all so damn fucking smart. That
Scary.
I never thought about that either.
Yeah.
I guess they might be the marker for a lot of fandom as well.
Absolutely.
I think you're probably too humble to brag on it, knowing you for now an hour. But how many bands have you discovered and brought out of their communities and lifted them into?
And why is Soul Glow the greatest band ever?
I'm thinking specifically
I'm sorry.
of them, but I know there's other bands one thing is you have a reputation of being somebody who sees something and then champions them. And I think that's, again, part of our community. You pay it forward. You have a very good reputation in our community as paying it forward.
Absolutely.
And putting your money where your mouth is, and putting the opening slot where your mouth is, and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? But I'm wondering if that's, I guess my question is really not who and how many times have you done that, and not even why, because I think we all know why. You're a fan and you like something, you support it. But what's kind of there's not a reward to that other than just enjoying something?
Well, I can speak to immediately that Jeff from Thursday instilled that in me, because that's what they did for us. Right. And there was a lot of bands that I was, and still am, big fans of that didn't need to be as kind and helpful as they were. And I still and I appreciate you saying that, I still to this day always feel like I could be doing more for people. Though it gets pointed out where it's like, you've done this for a lot of people, but that's my favorite part about this. It's like, if I all of a sudden find a new band that's coming up that I'm like, oh shit, this band is good, it makes me want to be a part of it in some capacity. It's like I get to be in the band without being in the band, or it's like, oh, I get to watch this thing grow. And with doing the label that I do, that's been so fun because a lot of labels, as we know, can get a little spicy and upset if like you put out a record with them and then you move on to a bigger label.
Right.
You know, they're just like, well, you left us in a lurch, man. We're the ones that helped you grow.
Right.
I'm like, I love being the stepping stone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing because it's like, if people paid attention maybe because I put my name behind it or something like that, that's cool. But I want to see you succeed and go on to the next thing. So like Soul Glow, going to Epitaph, Gouge Away, moving up to Death Wish. There's been a few examples of this happening, and it just excites me. I love to watch it happen because I'm like, they deserve it. They're great fucking bands. And if like taking a band out on tour helps in any capacity, something like that, we joke about, we constantly bring out bands to be like first of or second of, and then like within 2 years, like they're bigger than us.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, we can't afford to have them on a tour anymore.
Yeah.
Or the same thing happens with like Road Crew. Like we've taken so many people out as like their very first time ever in a tour. And now I'm like, oh, you're Alex G's assistant now. Or like you're, you know, like all of that sort of stuff. And which is always really funny where it's like, that's great. Like we're glad that you saw the ropes with us and now we can't afford you.
I always tell people that I can never go to Europe again for the first time as a young man. That'll never happen.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I can take people for their first time and live vicariously through them.
Yeah.
And watch them be like, just the cars are on the wrong side of the road. And the beer looks like this and this is that. And that person talks like this. And like, I love it. Like, I love it so much. And I would do it forever. I will always bring new people and new bands and everything I can. Selfishly.
Yeah.
Because I want to live through them and I want to get that excitement again. You know what I mean?
We, Nick from my band wasn't touring with us as much because he had way too many things going on at home, work wise and stuff like that. So we had someone filling in for Nick, a really awesome guitar player, a friend named Alec. And he had never toured Europe before. And he went from like never touring Europe to being like, you're going with us like 3 times a year for like several weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So he got like just thrown right into it. And it was funny because at the end of the first one he did, he then flew from our last show to meet up with his band Initiate, which is a great hardcore band. He flew to meet up with them for their first time. And so it's like he got to have like the little bit of...
Yeah. So he was a tour guy.
It's like he just did a month with us and now he went to go play like, you know, really like DIY venues in the UK and stuff like that in France or whatever. So it's like he got to see it a little bit and then come off like a seasoned pro to his band once he met up with them.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool. But no, I'm with you. It's a fun thing to like watch someone else experience it for the first time.
I had, going back to Soul Glow, I had my first Soul Glow experience the other day, and it was phenomenal.
Where'd you see them?
I saw them in Austin. I was there for something else, but they were playing with Mannequin Pussy, and I just asked if I could go to the show. Like, just...
Yeah.
I was that dude. I was like, hey, Graham, can you get me into the show? I just want to go see them. I had never seen them, and I was like, first off, I had never seen Mannequin Pussy or Soul Glow in person.
So good.
Oh, my God.
So good.
So good.
Yeah, I went to that show here in LA.
Got stopped because of lightning. There was pouring rain on the kids in the Mohawk. Yeah. Pouring rain on people. Oh, it was great, man. It was perfect.
Man.
It was perfect. It was like the best first experience. And I'm like, I don't think I want to see anybody ever again. It was so good.
By the way, what venue did you do in El Paso? You mentioned that.
Oh, Tricky Falls. We had a big theater called Tricky Falls for a long time. Oh, my God.
I remember that. Yeah.
So named after my cat.
Really?
Yeah.
It was kind of like it kind of looked like an old theater.
Yeah, it was built in 1914, I think, 1916, called the Alhambra Theater. It's all, yeah.
I very much remember that.
Yeah,
show.
we did that I played there before we took it over a couple of times, and then we took it over for like, I think we had it for about 7 years. We had insane shows and insane times, but obviously like,
What year did that close?
We closed in 2018.
I was gonna say, I feel like we probably played there in like It's like 2014 makes sense. 2013, 2014.
Yeah, we did it between 2011 and 2018, like those 7 years.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it was fun to see your friends play huge shows and tiny shows and have those insane. We had like a Green Day underplay one day, which was insane. We had, yeah, that was like maybe my favorite, like just weird show. That was just amazing. But saw so many rad bands, and I've had venues since I was 18 or 19, like everything from like 30-person storefront with 10 guys that are all, 10 people, not guys, 10 people paying $30 each to cover the rent. And, it'd be like at the Drive-In Murder City Devils playing in a storefront to 20 people. And, lifelong friendships from that point on. We'll always have that crazy bonding moment. And grew from there all the way up to like, we're building a place right now that's going to be bonkers. And
awesome.
I always will do this in my hometown. Like I'll never leave.
Have you always lived in El Paso?
I'm 5th generation. Yeah. Always. And when the band moved here, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was in college, and we couldn't afford to come here and for her to keep going to school. So she would have stopped school, come here and worked some shitty job while I'm on tour. And I was like, I'm just going to be on tour anyway. So why am I going to go pay all that money for a place I'm not going to be in?
Yeah.
And instead I'm going to buy a house in El Paso and live. Well, actually we just moved in with my parents because, I was on tour 9 or 10 or 11 months out of the year, and it's much safer,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've basically always been there.
Right on.
Yeah.
I kind of have a question for both of you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You guys are like, again, this is me gushing over heroes of mine, so forgive. But what is that intrinsic thing that wakes you up in the morning and makes you do what you do every day? And do you have a routine of any sort that keeps you in it?
Try not to give a depressing answer on this one.
You can.
But I think it's okay.
But it's okay.
I think it's okay.
It's okay.
No. I mean, meaning like not. This isn't an artsy. It's not an artsy answer.
Fine.
I see what you're saying. It's a disappointing answer.
It's a disappointing answer.
It's fine.
I get it.
It's a fucking. It's not easy to do art for a living. So I feel like people who have this mental condition that we have where we just can't do something else. It's like we have such a built-in hustler mentality of like, what can I do to make a buck today? And so because of that, it's like there's several different avenues that I'm constantly having to traverse. So it's like currently right now, it's like I have Touche, I have the label I do, I have the podcast I do, I just picked up, I'm now working part-time at Amoeba pricing records. I'm doing that 3 days a week. And that's like my first, like, have a boss job since.
But do you get first crack at the records?
I do.
Okay, there we go.
So there's that aspect.
Yeah. You're gonna lose money on this.
I haven't taken advantage yet. I'm a month in, and I've come across stuff where I'm like, I've mostly been stuff that I'm like, fuck, had I known I was going to end up working here, because I know I spent so much money on that like 6 years ago, and I'm like, and here it is in front of me. Yeah. Damn it. And I could have gotten a discount. So what I'm getting at is like, I have a really hard time. I was just talking to a friend who's an actor the other day. I have a really hard time spending a day just sitting on the couch watching TV, and I applaud people who can just be like, I'm just going to rot on the couch all day. Yeah. But if I go through an entire day where I didn't do something to move something forward, I get really depressed. Like I get really hard on myself, where I'm like, I feel like I just wasted a day. And it sucks because it's like capitalism at its finest, to where I'm like, I didn't do something to like potentially earn me a buck in a couple days or in a couple weeks or whatever it was, whether it's like booking a big guest for the podcast that like might bring in 2 new subscribers. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or like, oh, I didn't sell any of my poetry books this week. Maybe I should post about that. I didn't, it's like, it's shit like that.
I will say this though, and I've said this a lot since 2001. And you're the generation that I'm talking about, right? So I was like in the last generation of people that sold a stupid amount of records a week, like a stupid, staggering amount of records.
CD era.
CD era. Like
CD era.
Yeah.
670.
Yeah.
20,000+ units a week.
It's amazing.
Blows my mind to this day,
crazy.
right? When they told me that number, I was like, I don't understand 20,000 human beings in these 7 days went and purchased. Like, I can't understand.
Yeah.
And also, why do we have no money? That's the other thing is you're like, how the fuck are we not making money? But I said, as soon as like the streaming era started and we would do these interviews and they're like, oh, it must be awful. Like, it must be awful now that there's streaming and you're not selling. I was like, this is going to make music so good because this takes out the people that are doing it for the wrong reasons. Not saying that you can't be talented and make great records, but I really do honestly believe if any of the commerce part that was a little bit easier pre-2001, if any of that is sculpting what you're doing, then I think now it won't. And that doesn't mean that there's not shitty bands and shitty records, but I think it does take one element out of the equation. And I love that I have to have, like when I put Sparta on hold in 2008, I had dinner with somebody that owns a studio in El Paso. And I was like, I'm fucking done because I was just tired, you know? And he's like, cool, don't break it up. Don't put an end to it because you're going to need 7 income streams. And I was like, what's an income stream? Because I literally didn't know.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to have to do 7 different things pretty much starting now for the rest of your life to be a musician. And I was like, bullshit. Because I mean, I was on a major and got paid and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden I was broke as fuck and depressed and freaking out. And then I started making really great records for myself that no one bought, right? But had so much fun. Went back to sleeping on floors in DIY fucking art galleries. You know what I mean? Like playing country music for the first time that was like so rewarding and exciting to me. And I thought none of this would have been possible if I did not break out of that cycle, you know?
Yeah.
That I had to in 2008 because it was a desperate time for me. It was like, it's either leave or leave permanently because I can't do this anymore, right? All of that has changed. And like, I love seeing somebody else. It's like, I got the podcast, I got the fuck thing, I got the Patreon, I got the blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, all of us are still doing that.
Yeah. I mean, but that's when I say like this condition that we have where it's like, I don't think I could operate any other way. It's like, cause I could delete everything and just be like, I'm going to go work in post-production. It'd be very easy to go do that because
but you're not going to.
I'm not going to because I just can't.
You can't.
I can't.
No.
It's I often say this, entrepreneurialism that's hard to say sometimes when you're tired.
My dad says that I have a gene or I'm missing the gene that he has that gives him anxiety and fear over failure. So he's like, I could never do what you do.
Yeah.
Because I'm so scared for you that you're not going to make it. And this is like when I'm successful.
Yeah.
He's like, I still am so stressed out by what you do. And I was like, I can't do what you do. He's a controller, like a CPA. Like, I can never imagine going to the same place every day. Yeah. Which is, I mean, I want to play music every day. To play music every day, I have to tour because I can't play music every day for public in my hometown, right? So I have to tour. I also want to see the world. Like, I left high school not applying to college because I wanted to go to Japan. And I figured my best luck at getting there was touring in a punk band because I saw punk bands playing Japan. That was like my simple equation was like, you did it.
I mean,
you said I could do it.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a job title. You don't have a job. It's a state of mind, and that you guys just do. And there are some of us that are. I mean, I'm extremely creative as well.
Yeah.
I don't have a stature. I don't have a thing. I don't have people that come and look at me and go, it's Jeremy or it's Jim.
But you also feel that you're the bridge that gets us to that. You know what I mean? Like, you understand us. We had this conversation earlier. Like, a lot of people even in A&R and in companies, record industries or guitar companies or whatever, don't understand us. And it's just a marketing job. And they're just like, you know, it'd be cool is if you played this on that and we filmed it and we shot it this way and then we blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't do anything for my fucking soul. Like, I don't need your free fucking guitar. I really don't. You know what I mean? What I need is somebody who gets what I'm doing and wants to elevate what I'm doing and wants to have a fucking conversation about it and then progress forward. Yeah. Like, how do we make a better record? So my answer to your question, like why I do this is every single day, one, I wake up with sounds in my head. Every single day of my life that I can remember, there's a sound. Like, there's a harmony, there's a whatever. I don't know how to always harness it, but it's always there. It's always with me. And at the end of the day, I want to write a better song. That's it. That's my only motivation. It's been my only motivation the whole time I've ever been doing this, is that I want to write the best song I can, and I haven't done that yet. So I just want to keep figuring it out and keep finding those inspiration points and keep finding those heroes that make me want to fucking do it better and better and better.
I once heard in the studio, I had the opportunity when I lived in Los Angeles like 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to be in a band in the studio with a band who was working with Rick Rubin. And he said this phrase, and I'm sure there are many people who have said this, but I remember him saying it. I also remember some other thing where he made a suggestion and it changed the whole dynamic of the record, which was like, what? That doesn't make sense. However, he said, if you're not in your own favorite band, quit.
Yeah.
I remember Josh Homme, they said, do you listen to your records? And he said, why would I make something I don't want to listen to? Something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you in your own favorite band?
I know in my heart that if I was not in this band, I would like the band. And that's what keeps me excited.
That's a good answer.
That's a great
That's a very
answer.
punk rock answer,
Yeah.
is what that is.
Yeah. I know a lot of, maybe not personally, but there's a lot of bands that I know I could look at and be like, you think you're above the music that you make, and fuck you for that. Because people like your band, but like you...
It's so shitty.
It's so shitty, but that is true.
It bums me out, where I'm like, I know you don't like this shit, you know? And what's something that I think we pride ourselves on as a band is that like none of us really listen to any of the same music. Like there's less than 5 bands that we can all agree on.
Wow.
You know, like less than 5 probably. And there's always like, it's always 4 out of 5, you know?
Yeah.
But no matter what, as soon as we get in a room together, the fucking sound that comes out is like, that's us. And it's the natural sound that comes out. It's like, it's jangly guitars, it's aggressive bass, it's loud drums, and it's my ass yelping. Where it's just like, yep, that sounds like Touche.
It's the 2 + 2 = 5 thing. You know what I mean? It's just it's a bigger thing than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah. It's like we've never had to think.
I said that right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've never had to think about like, how do we make a Touche song? It's just like,
yeah.
You just make one.
Anything that's whatever riff gets brought in, it might not sound like a usual Touche riff, but as soon as there's the rest of us behind it, it's like, nah, it's a Touche song, you know, which is something that, we all pride ourselves on.
It's always incredibly thoughtful when I listen to your records. I mean, you're doing the damn thing that drives me so crazy where you're like, we're going to release one single at a time right now. And I'm extremely impatient. And I'm like, I want to hear the whole damn record.
Give me the record.
Please, I need the whole damn record now. Well, however, I've listened to the new songs and they're absolutely, it's like you guys never go backwards. You always move forwards. It's always something slightly different. It's always something slightly, it's this journey of a road never traveled kind of, where it's like, we're going to go this way this time. Yeah. However, it doesn't sway far. It's like you make Touché Amoré records and you write these incredible, it's poetic to me when I hear it, and I'm in awe every time. I'm like, those moments where I'm like, wow, I wish I could write like that, because I wish I could write like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's just absolutely
brilliant. Well, that's inspiration. Inspiration is, to me, is wishing that you could do something as good as what you're listening to. Yeah. Because that's inspiring and you want to do it.
Very much appreciate that. Also, not to be the guy that feels like he needs to say this, but to our conversation we were having like 5 minutes ago, I don't know about you. It's a glass is half full, half empty situation. But I can be very envious of people who have the ability to just like wake up and go to a job that pays really well and have that security and have that comfortability to be like, oh, I'm never having to worry about bills because I have this steady job.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like I look at that and I'm like, man, that must be fucking awesome.
I'm not saying I wish I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Exactly. I just, for the camera, for the people,
we're
not better.
Oh, no. I wish I could.
We're not better.
Yeah. I think the point is that
our brains are broken.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that your brains are broken.
Not having security is dreadful.
Yes.
And that's part of being a musician.
Yes.
The artistry, man.
Even fortunate for us that have this and people know who our bands are and we get to tour and we play and we do make some sort of a living.
Yeah.
There's no, a canceled tour is the end of your credit forever.
1,000%. And done. Yeah. And the fact, we're not getting any younger. That part gets scary too.
Sure.
I'm like, there's no retirement plan for this.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah. And I know that there's definitely bands within our world that are probably, if they're around my age, our age, are thinking, maybe we should hang this up for like 3 years so that we can have the reunion money when that comes around.
For sure.
You know, and it sucks that people are probably thinking that way.
For sure.
But I also get it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point to let people know that it's not, the point is that you're not above it. We don't feel above it. We don't think we're better than anything else. It's just,
right.
Our brains don't work that way, and respect to people who do. And
yeah,
my sister is a very successful engineer, and I'm jealous as shit, and she's jealous of me. You know what I mean? Where the grass is always greener.
The grass is always, exactly. Yeah. That's going back to my conversation I said I was having with like my high school friend, where he was just like, man, you're fucking doing the thing. And I'm just thinking like, yeah, but you're like, you bought a house. Yeah. I will literally never own a house. I will never own a house. Not because I don't want to, because it's actually impossible for me.
Yeah.
So, and it will always be impossible for me.
Put an asterisk on there because you could live in El Paso and buy a house.
But how much are houses in El Paso right now?
Not very much.
Still?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Richmond, Virginia was always my like, that's where I'm going to go. Because Richmond is a town that I love, has all the things that I want in a town.
And fuck yeah, Avail and Strike Anywhere.
Great music. They got cool theaters. They got cool record stores. It's cool scene. Great bands from there. All of that. And I'm like, oh, and you can like buy like a really nice house for probably like $100,000.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Now they're $500,000 again.
Yeah.
Or there.
We're probably closer to the lower end of that.
Yeah.
At home. Just saying.
Yeah.
I always tell touring bands you should live in El Paso. It's an hour and a half from LA on a plane. Super easy. It's on 10.
Yeah.
5 hours from Phoenix. Done. Cheap as shit. Great people, great food.
Yeah.
Come to El Paso.
It's always on the.
Is this? We should get sponsored by El Paso.
This is now sponsored by Visit El Paso.
Yeah. Podcast is actually just renamed like El Paso Real Estate podcast.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, we should let him get back to his life.
We should. Can I ask one more?
Always.
Do you mind?
I don't.
Okay, I have one more. I kind of ask this question in many different ways, shapes and sizes whenever we do these interviews. But Touché Amoré, what is the greatest thing you've learned from being in that band?
Patience. I can be an incredibly impatient person. You mentioned having to wait for singles. As much as that's excruciating for the listener, we know it's worse for the band, because you're just like, man, we finished this thing so long ago, and I just want it to be out. I want to be able to have everyone experience it, and I want to be able to start playing these songs live and whatever. And like the rollout process, none of us ever thought we'd have to be talking into our fucking cell phones trying to get people to buy our records, and like the whole rollout process, all of that stuff, which like, it's all the stuff that we never signed up for outside of the music. So it's like, having to just wait for things, whether it's like tours that come up, whether it's patience with your band members about things, about like this last record that we wrote was the best vibe amongst us that we've ever had in the writing process. We always get along. I could probably list less than 3 times we ever had like a blowout in our band, It's probably because we're from Los Angeles, California, where we're very passive aggressive. We bottle things up, and it's just not in our nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's, we know when you're in a band with people for so long, you learn all of their buttons and all their little things and whatever else. And like, all that does is grow like a bigger respect for one another, to be like, I know I just shouldn't say something like that.
Yeah.
Because I know that's going to disrupt this writing process. But let them figure it out for themselves and let that happen. Because if I say, let's move on, it's going to upset that person.
Sure.
And that's not cool. So it's just like so all of those aspects of patience, whether it's waiting for something to come out, whether it's working with each other personally, whether it's working with new people, whether it's agents, management, whatever you call it, like it's really just taking a step and letting those things unfold however they're going to unfold, because I can't be in control of everything.
Wow.
Man, I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's kind of glad that we never met until now, because it's like we get all of this
sweet about that.
All of this everything at once, all the stories at once. So looking forward to a long friendship, and thank you for taking the time to do this and letting us do this last minute. Congrats on the record.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Appreciate it.
And let's do the artist's way, where we, deliberately write when we wake up, and we'll have a group chat. and we'll talk about what we wrote about today with hashtags and quantum possibilities.
Can we sell subscriptions to it though?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can we sell subscriptions to it so that you guys can get
exactly.
We can get paid. Awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Until
you,
next
Jeremy.
time.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Ciao.
Thank you.